Have you ever seen a completely black dragon? It's as large as 8,000 of Daniel's unconstructed. For the first time, she brought her small dragon to breed. It's easy to understand just how powerful this dragon is in an entire game. It's enough to match the strength of an entire country. However, Daenerys gave it to her servant. Then the servant returned it to Daenerys again. The royal symbol of power made him the owner of the unconstructed because his dragon in Daenerys' hands represents supreme authority. When Daenerys left without looking back, laughing loudly, her next target was Wu Goja, who had been well trained. He began to lift the dragon high and issued the command, "I did not expect Wu Goja to obey me by force." Daenerys' command allowed him to give orders as he wished. Meanwhile, Zhuge was still trying to break free. The desperate flapping of wings angered the servant. In Daenerys' language, threats are not understood. Daenerys knew that his Euron would not follow orders strictly. Zadriz is Bastari's Castow. Everyone there was shocked. I did not expect Daenerys to understand this. Even the commander was doubtful. It showed that Daenerys often paid attention to Valyrian, and Daniel spoke firmly. "I am of the Targaryen family, princess of the Valyrian storm. Valyrian is my native tongue. How could I not understand?" Only the real servant interacted. It meant that during previous negotiations, Daniel could understand his conversations with others. I was completely fooled immediately. Later, Daenerys used her command again on the Defiler, allowing him to kill everyone with weapons and self-trained destruction, eliminating oppression unconditionally. Suddenly, the Defiler, commanded by Daenerys, struck the heart of the owner directly with long hair. This was a very significant move, because 1 minute earlier, all these people were mine. They climbed the mountain continuously. Seconds later, Zhuge shot water down with force, burning all the commanders. Then Wu Goja began killing the city's owners. The land was filled with thick fire. Soon, all the city owners became burned corpses, and Daenerys stood beside Wu Constructor's army, speaking from her heart. "I know you've been under pressure all your life, but now you have freedom. I allow you to leave as you wish and live as you choose. But if you want to liberate more city owners, I hope you will follow me. Bring all lands under rule. Humanity's suffering is released. Now you have the freedom to choose who to go with." I didn't stop either. After Daenerys finished speaking, none of the constructors or unconstructed creatures chose to leave. They were all loyal to Daenerys. Before Daenerys departed, she placed a conductor on the ground because she no longer needed it. In this way, Daenerys successfully chose 8,000 influential poor people. Then she took all 3 dragons out of the city. Looking at the little girl in front of them, she had been abused continuously for 10 days and 10 nights. Her skin glowed under the sunlight, turning into a dry corpse, with the city owners' clothing around her. And in each mile, a child would die on a tree. There were 163 in total. Daniel, I could not endure this. The owners had to pay for killing the children, paying a huge sum of money. Soon, Daenerys led his army to the city of Tascar. However, the nobles at that time, seeing the approaching Defiler army, felt no fear at all and sent the city's milling warriors out the gates in front of Daenerys. At that moment, I began to execute the arranged strategy. All the nobles laughed heartily because they were using this method. Turchin, Dany, and Lys, the unconstructed army, were fully assembled from the exiled populace, and Daenerys was furious, ordering her generals to engage in battle. Now, the entire city of Tascar was watching milling closely. This time, they could only win. Loser was not an option. So Daario stepped forward to fight and decided to win this battle for the king of the Targaryen family. He saw that the opponents had modern weapons and war horses, but Neelys also wanted to provide her generals with full preparations. Daario thought horses were heavier than humans and need not be worried about. Then the enemy warriors, ordered to shout by the nobles, began their frontal attack. Daario showed no fear, even smiling at Daenerys. At that moment, the enemy warriors charged. Daario moved his hips and made a full force throwing motion. Under everyone's eyes, it struck the horse directly. The warrior lost balance and fell, but Daario did not hesitate. He drew his sword and decapitated the warrior. This action shocked everyone watching. The strongest military representative of Yling City, without a proper fight, was beheaded. Then the fire throwers on the walls launched flames. Not just a single advance along the Nillet troops' formation. Daario, in delight, removed his pants, began executing the strategy, and delivered the most excellent attack. Then Daenerys told the servants on the walls that she was the only legitimate heir of the Targaryen family. The queen sat amidst the thunderstorm. "Now I had liberated a Staber and 2 Tascar cities from Yunkai. I am not your enemy." All high-ranking priests said that Danielis had ordered his soldiers to push through. Even as the catapults worked, everyone thought Danielis' plan to build a factory. I did not expect that the catapults would fling materials at high speed without running out. These materials relied on 163 children. Now all of them were subdued by Danielis. It was time to make the nobles pay for the damage. It was late at night, but Neelys ordered the Dirtmen to sneak into the forest city and found the Tascar people who were being ridden, arming them lightly to fight for their freedom. Then, at dawn, the nobles strolled with their soldiers as usual. Upon seeing the red words on the walls, they realized danger was approaching. In the next moment, many Tascar people surrounded the nobles, weapons in hand, and attacked them one by one. After this uncertainty, Daenerys successfully liberated Tascar and punished all the nobles amid cries of pain. Finally, Daenerys avenged her children and looked around the milling city, filled with the nobles wailing. Daenerys now stood proudly in the center of Grammet. Above him, the Targaryen family flag still flew, signaling that the city was now under his protection. The young dragon from that day grew beside Daenerys day by day, and his power began to grow abnormally strong. However, for others, this was not a good sign. Although some of the three-headed dragons truly belonged to Daenerys, they were ferocious beasts with wild, glaring eyes after everything that had happened. After releasing the dead wildlife, the three-headed dragons began fighting each other for food. Such savage behavior was completely beyond Daenerys' control. It was only then that Daenerys began to understand the nature of the three dragons. If not properly managed, it could lead to a major disaster. Not long after, a boy and his father were grazing by the river when a scorched tree appeared before the boy. Its massive form loomed in the sky. Zhuge, terrified, threw a dragon spear at the nest, grabbed a creature at random, and flew away quickly. Soon, the castle guards arrived at the milling palace to report to Daenerys. Opening a package in my hands. Inside were charred eggs. Now the entire nest had been consumed by the dragons to reduce the damage to the guards. But Neleus decided to pay triple the value as compensation, so the castle guards left satisfied. Later, they were able to move toward the civil kingdom. His presence was filled with despair. I opened a package in shock. There were only 3-year-old children around the nest playing. The result was that the children were burned until their bodies were reduced to bones. Only then did Daenerys realize she had completely lost control over her offspring. So she wanted to personally restrain Zhuge. But when she looked into her child's eyes, Daenerys realized that Zhuge would no longer obey her as before. Then the burnt tree disappeared, leaving Daenerys alone. This was meant to protect the other 2 dragons. Daenerys took them to the basement and arranged them in front of him. "It's okay, heavy stuff," she said. Then Daenerys stepped forward slightly, holding iron. Feeling very sorrowful at that moment, she placed the items on her child's body, then walked to the doorway without looking back. The 2 dragons sensed that something was wrong and roared at their mother, but Daenerys had a heavy heart. Although this was her son Zhuge's fault, someone had to take responsibility. Throughout the night, Daenerys, worried about her child, returned to the basement again. I did not expect that it was within their sight. Extreme anger and panic toward their mother began to manifest as water spouted from the dragons' mouths. Daenerys was terrified and quickly fled the scene. Soon, Daenerys looked around the castle. 10 assassins revealed themselves, carrying light weapons, intending to kill Daenerys. Seeing the scouts fall loyally, Daenerys knew her life was near its end and prepared to face death. But in the midst of life and death, the dragon's roar illuminated the entire sky. The burnt tree controlled a fierce fire tail, charging directly at Daenerys and landing in the middle of the castle. It bit the enemies with its fangs, then used the tree to burn the front of the dragons, incinerating the armed foes. Shouts echoed throughout the castle. The intense fear caused the assassins ready to kill to flee in panic. Seeing Zhuge injured while defending himself, Daenerys rushed forward, pulling his long hair. Zhuge opened his mouth in pain, attempting to roar, but when he saw that it was his mother, he fell silent in the next instant. To prevent my child from being hurt again, Neleus tried to approach Longbei and spoke gently to Zhuge. Now flying, unexpectedly, Zhuge understood what his mother was saying. He began adjusting his body, and then surged forward. At that moment, it was the first time Daenerys was able to control her child, leaping into the sky. Perhaps he realized then that restraining Zhuge was a wrong choice. Afterwards, Daenerys remained in everyone's sight, riding the scorched tree, and safely exited the castle.